Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew and I just got done watching Alex Battalia's from Digital Foundry's video on his PC coverage for Starfield. And that got me thinking. Man, because there's like this thing always going on about how Nvidia is better than AMD and I'm just looking at this coverage and I'm looking at this footage of him showing, even Daniel Owens, was seeing the same thing about the whole AMD stack outperforming all of the Nvidia cards, and that got me thinking. I'm like, wait a minute, man, but like when I'm playing Cyberpunk on my AMD card, I'm not getting anywhere close to the same type of results that you would get from an Nvidia card, when there's like ray tracing going on or anything like that. But I mean, in pure rasterization power, I'm definitely getting higher than what the Nvidia cards were getting over there on Cyberpunk. So how is it that the AMD 7900 XT can outperform the 4090 on a game like Starfield that once that where this 4090 is beating the AMD card on other games? Well, this here is honestly my take on this whole thing, and this is the way I see it. Because if you look back and you look at all the frame rate scores, between the 4080 and the 7900 XT or the 7900 XT or the XTX or the 4090, you see these cards pretty much within a few frames of each other on multiple different games. Like multiple different games, you see that there is literally a few frames that separate the performance of these. The only time the Nvidia cards seem to like take off and go further into the distance is if you turn on ray tracing. But then if you go back and you look at the ray tracing performance of these cards without DLSS or FSR, the performance is still within just a few frames. Like Cyberpunk, I was looking at that one, and the XTX with ray tracing on it Ultra, it is like 21 frames a second, and then the 4080 was like 29 frames per second. So I mean, when you look at that, because like most of the time when you're seeing like the things are always talking about percentages, like this one's 15% faster or 30% faster, and then you look at the 30% faster and you're thinking like, whoa, yeah, that's better, that's 30% better. But then when you actually look at the actual frames that you get, it's like 5 frames, 6 frames. And then you got to ask yourself, well, like, okay, well, 6 frames. I mean, that is pretty good. But I mean, wait, but that's still under 30 frames per second, and 30 frames per second is no longer playable because it's trash. 30 frames per second is trash now in a game like Starfield on Xbox or something else. And I mean, even I've said like the 30 frames per second is bad in games on next gen consoles going forward. And I hear this and I'm thinking like, dang, dude, that 4080 is like 2 Xbox Series X's price wise, or 2 PS5s, and it's more expensive than the card I have right now, and it gives me 6 frames more for that extra money from what I paid for my card to what the 4080 cost. Like 6 frames, man, that is absolutely nothing. And then when those 6 frames don't even account to above 30 frames per second at a playable, you see where I'm going with this. I mean, I'm only a few years into this whole PC thing, and to tell you the truth, man, this madness about saying that like. I just, since I've bought this AMD card, I've been nothing but happy, and I've been nothing but impressed with the overall experience that I've had, except for a few outliers, maybe like Cyberpunk with ray tracing, or The Witcher 3 with ray tracing. But those games tend to heavily favor Nvidia graphics cards. But then when I see something like Starfield, a brand new game with incredible visuals, incredible textures, come out, and then pure rasterized performance is beating the all of the Nvidia cards, the AMD stack is beating all of the Nvidia cards. All that makes me ask is our are both platforms being used to their fullest? And I do agree. Like if Nvidia graphics cards are not being used to their fullest for a game like Starfield, but they can handily beat, like the AMD cards in other games. Does that just technically mean that like neither one of these cards are being fully utilized ever when they come out, when a new game comes out? Are they ever being truly fully utilized, or are we just sitting here, like with the consoles, with Xbox and PlayStation 5, people are always like, it's like two midgets fighting over each other. And that's kind of the way I'm feeling about the graphics cards too. I'm personally at a point where it's like, hey man, it doesn't matter what stack you choose. Eventually you're going to get a game that's going to be optimized very well for your particular choice of card, while other games are not going to be. They're going to be better optimized for the competing brand, and that's just something that you're gonna experience through gaming, no matter what. Like me personally, right now, I'm happy that I made the choice to go with the AMD card for a game like Starfield. I'm very happy with that. I have an incredible experience with this game. 4K, 1440p, with FSR, without FSR. I have a very good experience with the overall quality of Starfield on this graphics card. Would I be able to say the same if I was on the Nvidia cards? I don't think I would, because me personally, I still don't use mods. So that means my experience on a 4080 could potentially be poor, or 4090 could have potentially been poor without getting any mods to bring in like DLSS or anything like that. I guess I would probably still have a pretty good. I would do what I did with what was that other game? Oh, on the 3080, Jedi Survivor. I had to use FSR on the 3080 to play that game because I don't think DLSS was enabled at the time when I played that. No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was. I think that just barely came out. So I was playing that one and using FSR, and I was looking around in that world, and I was like, oh, man, this doesn't look bad. Like, I played through the whole game with FSR on, and on that 3080 at 1440p, and I really enjoyed that game. There were times when the frame rate would go down into the 40s, but then there were times when the frame rate would almost be at 100. Using that game and using that card. So it's one of those things where I think that the AMD makes a very compelling product now. And I do think that there are a lot of forces out there, not necessarily forces, but I do feel like there's a lot of things out there that really do play against AMD because of where they are in the overall GPU market. If you look at Nvidia, Team Green, like what are they, like 80 something percent, 90% adoption rate for an Nvidia graphics card. So those cards are probably getting the most optimization out of all the other developers out there. They're probably optimizing for Nvidia because that's what most people are using, whereas AMD is probably just being left to brute force it for AMD adopters, and that does kind of worry me a little bit, and it's almost like it almost plays directly into the console market, where the PlayStation is the market leader. So all of the developmental resources and all of that go in there to optimizing the PlayStation 5 version, where the Xbox Series X is left to just brute force the game, whereas the Xbox Series S actually does get that extra added optimization right there at launch for that game to run better. And it's kind of interesting because when you go back and you look at a lot of these games that came out running better on PS5, that are now been patched up on Series X and running better and better on the Series X than they are on the PlayStation 5. It's like nobody goes back and really talks about that after the fact. But then when it comes to graphics cards, they it's kind of weird because we always just as a benchmarker, we're always just benchmarking these games at, you know, the ultra settings with the we're always just benchmarking ultra settings with native resolution and seeing how they go. I want to start like optimizing the games on the AMD side and show people like, hey man, this is what you can expect if you play around with some settings at 4K. This is what you can get at 1440p. I'm actually thinking about doing those kind of videos to like try to get the most performance and still look good on the 4K side. Maybe I'll start benchmarking at 4K low. You know what I mean? Just set everything to low and 4K and then run it natively and show you guys my numbers with that. Maybe I'll do that. That'll probably be that's probably a better way to see what you actually get out of all of that, and then you can decide to go from there how much you want to take away to put to it. So as far as I'm concerned, man, I do think that AMD makes a very compelling product this generation, and last generation they did. If you look at like 6800 XT performance versus 3080, you know, performance on a game like Starfield, you're like, wow, man, like you're sitting pretty if you had an AMD card last generation for the launch of Starfield, because it really does. It really was a pretty much flawless experience throughout the whole game playing it and everything that I've done since. So you can't really say that for the Nvidia guys right now, the Nvidia cards right now. Nvidia, you would think that the 4090. See, this is the thing, man. This is what really throws this off for me, is you would think the 4090 would not be losing by like 1 to 2 frames to the 7900 XT. In a world where the 4090 is the king, how is it losing to the AMD 7900 XTX in a game like Starfield? Like, I mean, we've seen some pretty good looking games already, but like, wow, how do you explain that? How does that card not have the power to just brute force that game to 100 frames a second without needing upscaling? Like, you tell me that, man. Like, I mean, like, the Nvidia bros always want to throw that in our faces that Nvidia's better and stuff, but it's like, well, how come this card, this 4090 monster, can't brute force Starfield to 100 frames a second? Like, how come it can't do that? That's the message for today, you know? I mean, watching this Alex Battaglia video, you know, it's just funny how he goes through it, and it's like nitpick every single thing about AMD. And then nitpick, well, there's no DLSS. He spent a pretty good portion on that video about DLSS this and that. And it's like, sometimes developers aren't going to use that crutch. We sit here, and this is the thing, man. We sit here and we listen to everybody like complaining, oh man, don't use these as a crutch. And then when Starfield comes out and it doesn't use DLSS as a crutch, everybody's mad because they don't have their crutch. So I don't know how to go about this, man. Like, trust me, we all want the best performance. I get it. We all want the best performance out of the products we buy. But there's also a thing that, like, if you think that your card is the best no matter what, and it fails to meet your expectations, most of the time, like the Nvidia card did with me, it failed to meet my expectations most of the time, unless I turned on DLSS, then it was playable. But if it's failing to meet your basic expectations, is your card really the best? For as long as I've owned this AMD card, and with all the new games that I've played, it has more than met my expectations every single time. The only games that I'm unable to play like I would used to be able to play on the Nvidia is Cyberpunk and The Witcher, man. Those are literally the only two games that I'm like, wow, dude, I wish I got a little bit better performance out of these. with this card. But those are the only two, and they are heavily optimized for Nvidia. Heavily optimized for Nvidia. So I get it. I understand that. Like I get that. Like if you've got a 4080 or 4090 and everything that you're playing is running great for you, except for Starfield, I mean, I have to temper my expectations for games that are heavily optimized for Nvidia. Well, okay, man. Like, how does it feel? How does it feel to get a game that you guys want to play really, really bad, and it doesn't have your favorite little cake and your cake and icing on? Yeah, and it doesn't have your icing on the cake and your cherry on the top. It kind of sucks just eating freaking. It really does kind of suck having to eat cake without frosting and and cherries on top sometimes. So there you go, man. Like. I don't know what else to tell you guys. I just think it's absolutely hilarious that everybody, will come after Bethesda and be like, "Why don't you optimize it for my green card? It's the best." And I'm just sitting here thinking like, I thought the Nvidia cards were the best, dude. Like they shouldn't need. I mean, like if the AMD cards can brute force it without any of the other stuff, why can't the Nvidia cards brute force it? Because when they do these things, they're not turning on the FSR or anything like that. They're showing you like pure rasterized power. If AMD can brute force it, why can't the Nvidia cards brute force it right next to them? Like you see what I mean? Like how's that even possible for that to not happen? It's kind of like the when games are developed and utilize the Xbox Series X, they're incredible. So, all right, man. If you guys like this content, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.